last time that I shared with you my entire journal ecosystem was back in May, and I thought I could give you an update because things have changed, things have moved around, and I thought I could share with you how I've been journaling lately. As you can see, all my journals now are leather bound journals because I fell into this hobby of making journals. I mean, I even made some journals for my friends. I wouldn't say I'm new to making journals. I think my first attempt was around 2023. But if I were to compare then and now, I think a lot has improved because there's so many resources available today. A lot of people are sharing their DIY Louise Carmen inspired journals. Some people are sharing what materials to buy and where to buy them. So I'd like to believe that these journals that I've been making recently are a lot better than the ones that I had to make 2 years ago when I was following my heart instead of tutorials. So I will be sharing with you my updated journal ecosystem, starting with this journal that started it all. This is my daily carry from Groton Archive. Not a lot has changed since I first shown you this, except for the front charm, of course. It now has this very beautiful gold-plated charm that says Paula. And the first insert that I have is this mini red notebook that used to serve as my commonplace journal. After having been exposed to several creators sharing their commonplace journaling practices, I realized that I actually need a bigger space. So now I just treat this as my notebook for quick, spontaneous notes. And since I've also been into Sudoku lately, I also use this as an activity book. So I have my Sudoku puzzles pasted on the pages. And there's also a practice that I've been doing lately that I really love, and it's when I scroll through any social media platform and I see certain texts. They don't have to be prophetic or poetic, they can be very simple, but whenever I feel like turning it into a full-blown journal entry, I like to write it down here first and then sharing a piece of my mind into my writing journal, which we'll be tackling when we get into it. But I'd like to give you an example. It's this text that I wrote last month, and it says, "Nobody who has ever made me feel small has possessed a life I admire." The next insert that I have is my good old mini dictionary, which requires no more explanation since I've shared this a couple of times already. This basically holds the words that I adore and their definitions. I'm actually expecting a lot of personal dictionaries from other people's journal ecosystem, but I think it's also such a shame that I saw this comment on someone else's ecosystem with a personal dictionary, and it was about shaming other people that write down definitions and words. And at first I kind of understood because it can be redundant since dictionaries exist for a reason and we can always just look up words and their meanings. But my final take on it is, number one, it's our system, it's what works for us, and number two, it's how we give ourselves access to these words. I think this is really helpful because whenever I write articles, I really have this by my side so I can practice using some of the words that I listed down here and, have them embedded in my vocabulary. It's such a shame that people really have to say those things. The third insert that I have is my daily planner, or the main reason that I carry this every day. It now has this beautiful cover with me and Elvis, my cat. And I think I've already shared this before that I really prefer working around monthly calendar setups. There's just something about weekly setup that I don't like. I also like to list down the things that I need to do, and whenever I need to write articles for a magazine and interview people, I write their answers down here. The last insert that I have for this journal is my art journal. I don't use this a lot because I'm not really the artistic type, but I still like to carry around something that would hold a space for whenever I feel like it. So yeah, this is my daily journal from Groton Archive. Out of all the journals that I own, this has to be my favorite. Next is my writing journal. This is my pride and joy. This is a handmade leather bound journal with charms from my old accessories. This one's from an old earring. This one's from an old necklace. This dagger charm is from Groton Archive. This one holds 3 notebook inserts, and the first one is my commonplace journal for desk-bound entries and topics that need a lot of research. An example is this piece on the cover page. I found this in the art magazine that I own, and I really loved reading the article that they had to celebrate the artist, Brenda Fajardo, so I also put it down here. And I have her other works as well. And I also have globally renowned paintings, the ones that we see a lot on the internet, because I came across this account on Instagram, and what they do is they ask people on the street if they could own a piece of art, what would it be? And a lot of people answered Ophelia and the Kiss, which was really interesting because I see both of these paintings a lot online, but I don't really know the story behind them, so I just did my research. I also have another great resource that I've been using a lot for my commonplace journal, and it's this big book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization by the Hungry Minds, which is also the sponsor of this video. It's this massive hand-illustrated guide that breaks down how civilization actually works. The idea is if we ever had to start over, like a total reset, this book would help you figure out how to get back to modern life from the ground up. And what I really appreciate most about this is it covers topics that I wouldn't normally think to explore on my own, but they're incredibly relevant and practical. Even the way information is presented is very accessible, making complex processes feel a lot more engaging. And I've been using it as one of my sources for topics that I've taken interest in, like brewing beer and identifying which plants are edible and poisonous. And if you're interested in getting one for yourself or as a gift for someone you know, you can use my code PAULA10 for 10% off, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. Huge thanks to Hungry Minds Publishing for sponsoring this video. The next insert that I have is my new writing journal. This is the replacement for my previous red journal, which I've had for almost 2 years. This time I've decided to make it a lot simple. I think I've outgrown my red phase, and I've seen a lot of my favorite creators write a letter to themselves which they can read a couple of years from now, and I was really inspired. So I also wrote one for myself that I can read next year in October. I've already mentioned my approach to journaling a lot of times before, and I still pretty much follow that practice. But I would say there are certain things that have spiced up my journaling sessions quite a bit. I was really inspired by the people who write columns, personal columns about their lives, and I'm someone who is not really knowledgeable with column writing, so I just observed their routines, took inspiration from what they do, and I think this practice really behooves me to harness inspiration from the things around me and be a lot more observant, because whenever I see something, I like to think about how I can turn this into a column. And I also have another practice that I mentioned just now, and it's what I do with this. It's when I scroll through some words and I like to turn them into full-blown journal entries, and this is an example. This is my entry for October 12th, and it starts with, "Nobody who's ever made me feel small has possessed a life I admire." I saw this on Instagram. They simply do not function under similar circumstances as me. How can I let them in as decision makers when there are things they can never understand? Okay, so this is basically an example, and it ends with, "Nobody who has ever made me feel small has possessed a life I admire, and this alone sets me free." So yeah, this is what I've been doing lately. The last insert that I have is my reading journal, which I've already shown before. This is for books that are very dense, rich in symbolisms and themes, especially with classics. Whenever I read a passage and would love to have a better understanding of it, I tend to read related studies and journals and articles, so I also write them down here. Some keynotes, key takeaways, nothing really exciting, just full of scribbles and words, quotes, ideas. That's all. Oh, and this little corner right here holds some of my photo booth photos. The next one is this very beautiful handmade red-orange leather-bound journal with repurposed charms. This one's from an old necklace, this one's from a bracelet, and this one is from Groton Archive. I would say this is one of my favorite journals to own because it holds a lot of memories. It's so thick. It's like a tangible keepsake of what I've been through, what I've become, things like that. And I'm really happy that I decided to create something like this because it now enables me to look back on things and reminisce, because, who am I without my sentimentality? And the last journal that I own is this very small photo booth album. This color was specifically requested by my cousin because she wanted me to make a journal for her in this color, and I didn't want the scraps to go to waste, so I just turned it into this. The inserts are also recycled. These are from magazine scraps. And yeah, this is basically for my photo booth photos. So this is my entire journal ecosystem. As always, I hope I contributed something valuable to this entire discourse. And I'm also looking forward to looking at other people's ecosystems because it's one of my favorite videos to watch on the internet.